The late July sun cast dappled shadows across Riverbend Park, where children's laughter mingled with the gentle splashing of the duck pond. Joggers navigated meandering paths while families sought respite from the sweltering heat that had gripped Portland for days. The city had been under an excessive heat warning for nearly a week, the temperature climbing above 95 degrees by mid-morning and showing no signs of relenting. Local meteorologists had taken to calling it the endless summer heat wave, the most severe in nearly a decade. George and Eleanor Wilson, a retired couple in their 70s, followed their daily ritual of an afternoon walk, having adjusted their schedule to the relatively cooler morning hours. Eleanor occasionally steadied herself on George's arm. As they rounded the eastern edge of the pond, her arthritis more troublesome in the oppressive humidity. 47 years of marriage had synchronized their movements, each intuitively compensating for the other's limitations, without comment or conscious thought. "The water level's down again," George observed, gesturing toward the exposed mud at the pond's edge, where ducks waddled awkwardly. The retired high school science teacher couldn't help noticing such details. "Third year in a row, climate change is transforming this ecosystem before our eyes." Eleanor nodded absently, her attention suddenly caught by something else entirely. Her grip on her husband's arm tightened. "George," she whispered, nodding toward a solitary figure on a bench, partially hidden by a weeping willow. "Look at that poor child all alone." A small girl no more than 7 or 8 years old sat perfectly still, her feet dangling several inches above the ground. What immediately struck the couple as odd was her attire: a thick turtleneck sweater, long sleeves, and what appeared to be gloves, despite the near 100-degree heat. Her head was bowed, dark hair falling forward to obscure her face. Hello there, sweetheart." Eleanor called, gently approaching with the warm smile that had comforted thousands of pediatric patients during her 35 years as a nurse at Portland Children's Hospital. "Are you lost? Where's your mommy or daddy?" The girl didn't respond or look up. She merely gripped the edge of the bench tighter, her small shoulders hunching forward as if trying to make herself even smaller. "Maybe she doesn't speak English." George suggested scanning the park for any distressed adults searching for a child. The area was filled with people, mothers pushing strollers, teenagers throwing frisbees, elderly couples like themselves seeking shade. Yet this little girl sat utterly alone, as conspicuous in her solitude as a single star in a daylight sky. Eleanor knelt carefully, her arthritic knees protesting the movement as she brought herself to the child's eye level. Decades of pediatric nursing had taught her that children responded better when adults didn't tower over them. "Are you okay, honey? Do you need help finding your parents?" she asked, keeping her voice gentle and non-threatening. Still no response. The girl remained motionless, a small statue in winter clothing on a sweltering summer day. When Eleanor gently touched the girl's shoulder, she flinched violently, pulling away as though the touch had burned her. "Something's not right, George," Eleanor murmured, concern deepening the wrinkles around her eyes. "She seems terrified." The child's reaction triggered Eleanor's professional instincts. In her years at the hospital, she'd seen similar responses in traumatized children. The flinching, the silence, the inappropriate dress, all warning signs that had been drilled into every pediatric healthcare worker. They remained with the girl for 20 minutes, trying various approaches. Eleanor offered water from their bottle, spoke in soothing tones, even tried a few words in Spanish and Vietnamese languages, common in their diverse neighborhood. George scanned the park more systematically, looking for anyone who might be watching the child from a distance. Nothing yielded results, not a word, not a nod, not even eye contact. "I'm calling the police," George finally said, pulling out his phone. "This child needs help." The dispatcher assured them an officer would arrive shortly. Officer Mitchell and his K-9 partner are already patrolling nearby. She informed them, "They're on their way." Officer James Mitchell guided his patrol car through the park's winding access road, one hand on the wheel, while the other reached back to scratch behind Luna's ears. The Belgian Malinois pushed her head against his palm, her intelligent amber eyes alert despite the afternoon heat. "Another quiet day, girl," Mitchell commented, glancing at his partner in the rearview mirror. How about we swing by the river after this? You deserve a swim. At 3 years old, Luna was in her prime, 65 pounds of disciplined muscle and unwavering loyalty. Her tan coat gleamed in the sunlight, her black face mask giving her the regal expression characteristic of her breed. The specialized K9 unit vest she wore bore service and protection, emblazoned across its sides. Mitchell had come to the K9 unit by a circuitous route. After 8 years as a regular patrol officer, he'd found himself increasingly drawn to cases involving children. His sergeant at the time had noticed his particular skill at connecting with young victims and suggested the K9 unit where officers often worked with vulnerable populations. The recommendation had changed the trajectory of his career, giving him a sense of purpose that had previously been missing. Their partnership had begun 2 years earlier when Mitchell was paired with Luna as an 18-month-old recruit. The beginning had been challenging Luna's intelligence, initially manifesting as stubbornness. But that difficult period had forged an unbreakable bond. Now they moved as one unit, often communicating without words or commands. Just months ago, they tracked a missing 6-year-old through the dense undergrowth of Forest Park. Luna had led officers directly to the disorientated child who had wandered nearly 2 miles from a family picnic. Mitchell had carried the exhausted boy out of the park himself, the child clinging to his neck like a lifeline. The memory of the parents' tearful gratitude still warmed him on difficult days. The radio crackled to life. Unit K9-4, respond to the east side of Riverbend Park Duck Pond area. Elderly couple reports a child female, approximately 7 years old, alone and unresponsive. Possible language barrier or special needs situation. This is K9-4 responding ETA, 3 minutes. Mitchell replied, straightening in his seat as he turned onto the park's eastern access road. He watched in the mirror as Luna perked up at the call, her posture straightening with focused attention, ears pivoting forward in alert concentration. Mitchell had always been impressed by how his partner seemed to understand their assignments. Calls involving children in particular brought out a special gentleness in the otherwise imposing dog. Looks like we've got a little one who needs help, Luna, he said, reaching back to pat her flank. Let's go find out what's happening. They arrived minutes later, Mitchell spotting the elderly couple standing near a bench, hovering protectively near a small figure. He attached Luna's standard lead rather than her tracking harness. This wasn't a search situation, at least not yet. Stay close, he instructed as they approached. Luna padded silently beside him, her gait relaxed but alert. The elderly man waved them over, relief evident on his weathered face. Officer, thank goodness. We've been with her almost 30 minutes now. She won't speak, won't even look at us. Mitchell approached, slowly taking in the scene with practiced observation. The girl remained motionless, her gaze fixed on the ground, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Up close, her appearance raised immediate concerns. Despite the sweltering heat, she wore a thick navy turtleneck sweater, long sleeves pulled down to her wrists, and thin cotton gloves. Dark leggings covered her legs completely, and she wore scuffed sneakers that looked a size too large. I'm Officer Mitchell, he introduced himself quietly. This is Luna. What can you tell me about finding her? She was just sitting here alone. Eleanor explained, her voice carrying the confident authority of someone who had spent a lifetime in emergency medical situations. We tried talking to her, but she won't respond. We thought maybe she doesn't understand English, or perhaps she's deaf. Has anyone else approached her? Any adults looking for a child? Mitchell asked, scanning the area. No one, George confirmed. We've been watching. No one's come searching. Mitchell turned his attention to the little girl. Hi there, he said gently. My name's James, and this is my friend Luna. She's a police dog, but she's very friendly. Not a flicker of acknowledgement crossed the child's face. Her gloved hands remained clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white with tension. Mitchell had expected Luna to stay in her usual heel position, but his partner moved forward, approaching the girl with unusual caution. Normally confident and direct, Luna was instead making herself smaller movements, deliberate and slow behavior she reserved for approaching injured victims. Easy, Luna, Mitchell murmured, though he knew he didn't need to caution his partner. Even in training scenarios, Luna had demonstrated exceptional judgment about how to approach different individuals. The girl's eyes finally moved, tracking Luna with a flicker of interest, the first response she'd shown to anyone. The dog stopped a foot away, sitting down and tilting her head, slightly ears forward, but relaxed in a non-threatening posture. "She likes you," Mitchell said, remaining where he was. He reached slowly into his pocket, producing a small stuffed dog, a miniature replica of a police canine that he kept for situations involving children. "This is a little Luna," he explained, placing it on the bench beside the girl. "I think we should go to the station where it's cool and we can figure out how to find your family. Would that be okay?" After a moment's hesitation, the girl slid off the bench, though she avoided taking Mitchell's outstretched hand. What caught his attention was how she purposefully positioned herself closer to Luna than to him. "Thank you both for calling this in," Mitchell said to the Wilsons. "Would you be willing to come to the station to give a formal statement about finding her?" "Of course," Eleanor replied immediately. "We're retired, our schedule is clear. We just want to make sure she's all right." Mitchell nodded appreciatively. Too often, Good Samaritans wanted to disconnect once authorities arrived. The Wilsons' concerns seemed genuine and could prove valuable if the situation became more complicated. At the patrol car, Mitchell explained gently, "Luna usually rides in the back behind the partition, but today she can sit with you if you'd like." The girl hesitated, eyeing the cage partition with visible apprehension. Mitchell recognized the fear response. Many children found police vehicles intimidating, associating them with trouble or arrest. The last thing this silent child needed was to feel like she was being detained. "It's just to keep Luna from jumping into my lap while I'm driving," he explained with a reassuring smile. "She gets pretty excited sometimes." When the girl still wouldn't move toward the vehicle, Luna did something unexpected. She walked to the open rear door and hopped into the back seat herself, settling on one side and looking expectantly at the child. Mitchell blinked in surprise. Luna was breaking protocol. Service dogs weren't supposed to make decisions without commands. Yet something in his partner's demeanor told Mitchell to trust her judgment. "Looks like Luna wants to ride with you," he said casually. "Would that be okay?" The subtle shift in the girl's posture suggested relief. She took a tentative step toward the vehicle, then another. When she finally climbed in beside Luna, Mitchell noticed her wince when using her right arm. "Are you hurt?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. The girl immediately shook her head quickly, hiding her arm against her body, her first direct response to a question. Mitchell made a mental note but didn't press further. Building trust was more important than immediate answers. "We'll follow you to the station," George called, helping Eleanor into their sedan. During the drive, Mitchell watched through the rear-view mirror as the girl's tension gradually eased. She remained still, but her eyes kept darting to Luna, who stayed focused entirely on the child, rather than watching out the windows as she usually did. Eventually, one gloved hand came to rest tentatively on Luna's back. "I've called ahead to the station," Mitchell said conversationally. "Detective Chen will be there to meet us. She's really nice and helps a lot of kids. She even knows sign language if that would help you communicate." No response came, but Mitchell caught how the girl's eyes flickered with interest at the mention of sign language. "Luna's pretty special." He continued, maintaining the one-sided conversation. "She helps find people who are lost, and she can tell when someone needs help, even if they can't say so out loud. Kind of like a superhero, but with 4 legs and a tail." A tiny, almost imperceptible relaxation occurred in the girl's shoulders. Mitchell had learned over years of working with traumatized children that sometimes the most comforting thing was normalcy. An adult talking calmly about ordinary things, creating an atmosphere of safety before asking difficult questions. She loves swimming in the river and chasing tennis balls. Not very police dog-like, I know, but everybody needs a way to relax after work. He chuckled softly. Even Luna. The Central Precinct building came into view, a modern glass and concrete structure with the Portland Police Bureau emblem prominently displayed. Unlike many older police stations with their intimidating fortress-like designs, this building had been constructed with community engagement in mind, featuring large windows and an open plaza. "Here we are," Mitchell announced, pulling into a designated K-9 unit space near the entrance. "Let's go inside where it's cooler." The station's central atrium was a hive of controlled activity, with officers and civilians moving purposefully across the polished floor. The air conditioning was a sharp contrast to the oppressive heat outside, and Mitchell noticed goosebumps forming on the girl's arms despite her heavy clothing. Detective Sarah Chen waited by the reception desk, her keen dark eyes assessing the situation immediately. At 36, Chen was one of the department's most respected detectives, having specialized in crimes against children for the past 8 years. Her desk, rarely visible beneath case files and family photos, was a testament to both her heavy workload and her motivation for enduring such emotionally taxing cases. "Hi there," Chen said, her voice gentle as she knelt to the girl's eye level. "I'm Sarah, welcome to our station." The girl remained silent, half hiding behind Luna, who had positioned herself protectively between the child and the busy station environment. Mitchell touched Chen's shoulder, tilting his head toward the quieter family interview room. "Maybe somewhere less overwhelming," he suggested quietly. Chen nodded, understanding immediately. "Good call, I've got the blue room set up. It's designed for kids more comfortable, less scary." The Blue Room, as it was informally known, was a special interview space created specifically for children. Unlike standard interrogation rooms with their stark furnishings and intimidating atmosphere, this space featured comfortable furniture, soft lighting, and walls painted a calming shade of blue. Child-appropriate books and toys were available, and recording equipment was discreetly hidden to avoid making young interviewees self-conscious. Once settled on a small couch, Chen began signing while speaking. "My name is Sarah. Can you tell me your name?" The girl watched Chen's hands with interest but made no move to respond. "I'm thinking she's not deaf," Mitchell said quietly from where he stood near the door. "She responds to sounds, just not verbally." Chen nodded, changing tactics. She retrieved a tablet from a drawer and opened a drawing program, offering it to the girl. "Would you like to draw? Maybe draw your home or your family?" "Hinky." The child looked at the tablet but didn't reach for it. Chen placed it on the low table before them, not pushing but leaving the option open. "I've got apple juice and some cookies in the break room," Mitchell suggested. "Luna always says they're the best cookies in Portland." This earned the first hint of expression, the barest ghost of a smile flickering across the girl's face before disappearing. It was fleeting but unmistakable, and both officers noted it with cautious optimism. While Mitchell retrieved the snacks, Luna, who had settled at the girl's feet, suddenly raised her head, attention focused on the child's hands. With deliberate movement, the dog nosed at one of the thin cotton gloves, gently tugging at the fabric. "Aladcon, Luna," Mitchell said automatically upon returning, preparing to correct his partner's behavior. Service dogs weren't supposed to interfere with people without cause or command. Chen held up a hand, stopping him. "Wait," she whispered. They watched as Luna continued gently pulling at the glove, until after a moment's hesitation, the girl allowed the dog to tug it partially off. The exposed skin revealed the edge of a darkening bruise encircling her tiny wrist. "James," Chen whispered, her expression grave. The bruising pattern was distinctive finger-shaped marks, consistent with someone having grabbed the child's arm with excessive force. Mitchell had seen similar injuries too many times in his career, each instance kindling the same quiet fury in his chest. Chen carefully reached out. "Sweetheart, can I see your arm just to make sure you're okay?" The girl immediately pulled her hand back, tugging the glove into place and crossing her arms tightly across her chest. The brief openness vanished, replaced by rigid self-protection. Mitchell and Chen exchanged knowing glances. This wasn't simply a lost child situation anymore. This was potentially an abuse case. The long sleeves, the turtleneck in summer, the gloves, the silence, all textbook signs of a child hiding injuries and trauma. "I'll call Child Protective Services," Chen said quietly, "and we should have medical examine her." Mitchell nodded, maintaining a calm exterior. Despite the anger building within him, Luna remained pressed against the girl's legs, her usual disciplined demeanor replaced by what could only be described as protective vigilance. "I'm going to step outside for just a minute to make a phone call," Chen told the girl gently. "Officer Mitchell and Luna will stay with you. Would you like to try some juice or cookies?" The girl made no movement toward the offered snacks, but her eyes followed Chen to the door before returning to Luna. In the hallway, Mitchell joined Chen briefly. "I've seen this before," he said in a low voice. "Something's very wrong here. The clothing in this heat, the bruising, the complete silence. It's like she's shut down entirely." Trauma response. Chen agreed. Fight, flight, or freeze, she's frozen. The question is who did this to her, and how do we find them when she won't speak? Luna sensed something right away. Mitchell noted, "She's been unusually protective since we found her. I've never seen her behave quite like this. Animals often sense things we miss." Chen replied, "I'm calling Kate from CPS now, and Dr. Alvarez for a pediatric exam. We need to document everything properly. I've got the Wilsons in the waiting area. Their statement might help establish a timeline of when she was abandoned at the park." "Good. Chen began, but was interrupted by the station's front doors, bursting open with a bang that echoed through the building. A woman in her mid-30s rushed in her designer handbag, swinging wildly from her arm as she approached the front desk with frantic energy. Her cream-colored linen dress and impeccable makeup seemed at odds with her distressed demeanor. "My stepdaughter!" she exclaimed, voice carrying down the hallway to where Mitchell and Chen stood. "I've been told she's here. Emma. Where's Emma?" Mitchell immediately returned to the interview room, where he found the girl's body had gone rigid at the sound of the woman's voice, her small shoulders hunching forward as if trying to make herself smaller. Luna's reaction was equally telling. The Belgian Malinois rose to her feet, positioning herself directly in front of the child ears. Forward body tense. "Stay here with Luna, sweetheart," Mitchell said softly. "We'll be right back." In the main reception area, the woman was gesturing dramatically as she spoke to the desk sergeant. Tears streamed down her carefully made-up face mascara, creating artistic smudges beneath her eyes that somehow didn't diminish her polished appearance. "I've been searching everywhere," she was saying, voice trembling with emotion. "One minute she was beside me while shopping, the next gone. I've been out of my mind with worry." "Your name, ma'am?" the sergeant asked. "Victoria Blackwood," she supplied, pulling a designer wallet from her purse and extracting an ID card. "My stepdaughter is Emma Blackwood. She's 7. Is she here? Please tell me she's safe." Chen approached, professional mask firmly in place despite the alarm bells ringing in her mind. "Ms. Blackwood, I'm Detective Chen. We found Emma at Riverbend Park about an hour ago." Victoria spun toward her, relief flooding her features as she pressed a manicured hand to her heart. "Oh, thank God. Thank you, Detective. I've been beside myself." She looked past Chen expectantly. "Where is she? Is she all right?" "She seems to be physically unharmed," Chen replied carefully, noting how Victoria's designer watch slid down her wrist, revealing unblemished skin in stark contrast to Emma's bruised arms. "However, she hasn't spoken to us. Is Emma typically nonverbal?" Something flickered across Victoria's expression, so brief Chen almost missed it. A momentary hardening around the eyes, a tightness in her smile that vanished as quickly as it appeared. No, she speaks just fine normally," Victoria said, smoothing her already perfect hair. "She must be in shock from wandering off. Poor thing, gets frightened easily." She stepped forward. "I should take her home right away. We've both had quite enough excitement for one day." Mitchell appeared at Chen's side, his posture subtly blocking Victoria's path further into the station. "Ms. Blackwood, would you mind telling us how Emma came to be alone in the park? It's quite a distance from any shopping areas. We were at Westfield Mall." Victoria explained, her voice taking on an exasperated edge despite her concerned expression. "I turned around for literally 30 seconds to look at a display, and she was gone. She must have wandered off. She does that sometimes, just doesn't listen." Mitchell noted this explanation with professional skepticism. Westfield Mall was nearly 3 miles from where they'd found Emma, a significant distance for a 7-year-old to cover alone, especially in the oppressive heat and dressed as she was. "When did you notice she was missing?" he asked. "Around noon," Victoria replied quickly. Mitchell checked his watch. It was now 4:30 p.m. "That's a long time for a child to be missing. Did you contact the police earlier?" Victoria's perfectly manicured fingers tightened slightly on her purse strap, irritation flashing across her face before disappearing beneath a carefully constructed mask of maternal concern. Mall security said they'd handle it. They took a report and said they'd call the police if necessary. So I've been driving around searching everywhere myself. She glanced at her watch. Now I appreciate everything you've done, but we really should be getting home. My husband will be worried sick when he hears about this. Just a few more questions, Miss Blackwood. Chen interjected smoothly. Standard procedure when we find an unaccompanied minor. Would you mind coming back to our interview room? Is that really necessary? Victoria asked, annoyance more evident now. I've told you what happened. She wandered off. You found her case closed. It won't take long, Chen assured her, already guiding Victoria toward a different interview room than where Emma waited. We just need to complete our report properly. As they walked, Mitchell murmured to Chen, I'll check on Emma. The unspoken message between them was clear. Keep Victoria occupied while they assess the situation further. When Mitchell returned to the blue room, he found Emma still frozen in place, Luna maintaining her protective stance. Emma's stepmother is here, he said gently, watching carefully for the girl's reaction. Emma's breathing quickened visibly, her small chest rising and falling rapidly beneath the heavy sweater. Her eyes darted to the door, then back to Mitchell, wide with unmistakable fear. She's talking with Detective Chen right now, Mitchell assured her. They're in a different room. The child's shoulders lowered slightly at this information. Though her body remained tense, Mitchell knelt to bring himself to her eye level, careful to maintain enough distance to avoid intimidating her. Emma, he said softly, using her name for the first time, I want you to know that you're safe here. No one's going to make you do anything you don't want to do. He hesitated, then continued. Luna seems to think something might be wrong. Is there something you want to tell us about Victoria? Something that might be scary to talk about? Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she remained silent, her gaze dropping to her lap. You know, Mitchell continued conversationally, Luna is special. She can tell when someone is scared or hurt, even if they can't say it out loud. That's why she's helping police, because she notices things that sometimes even grown-ups miss. Emma's eyes lifted slightly, focusing on Luna, who had maintained her position between the girl and the door. The dog's presence seemed to be the only thing providing any sense of security to the frightened child. In the adjacent interview room, Chen was carefully building rapport with Victoria while probing for inconsistencies in her story. Emma seems very attached to our K-9 officer. Chen remarked, does she have a special interest in dogs? She's afraid of dogs, Victoria said, instantly checking her phone before slipping it back into her designer purse. Absolutely terrified of them, actually. The dog should be removed before she sees it. She'll have nightmares. Chen made a note, recognizing the contradiction with what they'd observed. That's strange. She's been quite comfortable with Luna since we found her. Well, she must be in shock then, Victoria replied dismissively. Under normal circumstances, she can't even look at dogs without crying. Now, how much longer is this going to take? I have a charity event this evening, and this has already thrown our entire schedule into chaos. Just a few more questions, Chen assured her, noting how quickly Victoria's concern had shifted from her stepdaughter's well-being to her own schedule. How long have you been Emma's stepmother? 2 years. Her mother died when she was 4. Cancer. Victoria supplied her tone, softening appropriately. Richard, my husband, and I married a year later. It's been challenging stepping into the mother role with a child who was so traumatized by her loss. I can imagine, Chen said sympathetically. What's Emma like at home? Does she have any behavioral issues we should be aware of? Victoria hesitated, carefully considering her response. She's very withdrawn, doesn't connect well with other children. Her therapist says it's related to losing her mother at such a formative age. She sees a therapist. Chen asked, what's the therapist's name? We might want to consult them about today's incident. Another slight hesitation. Dr. Williams in Beaverton. I'd have to look up the exact contact information. Chen nodded, making another note. No Dr. Williams specializing in child psychology was registered in Beaverton. She was certain of that after years of working with local mental health professionals, but she kept her face carefully neutral. And Emma's father, you mentioned he'd be worried. Is he at home now? No, he's in Tokyo on business. Richard travels frequently. He runs an international investment firm. When is he due back, Wayne Mishorn? Next week, Victoria replied, irritation creeping back into her voice. Detective, I appreciate your thoroughness, but this is becoming excessive. My stepdaughter wandered off, you found her, and now I'm here to take her home. Unless you're charging me with something, I believe we're done here. Chen smiled pleasantly, concealing her growing concerns. We're nearly finished. I'd just like to ask about Emma's clothing. She's wearing quite heavy layers for July, including gloves. Is there a medical reason for that? Victoria's expression tightened momentarily. She gets cold easily, poor circulation, and she has eczema on her hands. The gloves protect her skin from irritants. Look, are these questions really necessary? Not just routine, Chen assured her. One last thing, Emma has been completely nonverbal since we found her. Is that typical behavior when she's stressed? She's always been quiet, Victoria replied, standing to indicate the interview was over from her perspective. Now I'd like to see my stepdaughter. Chen rose as well. Of course, right this way. As they walked toward the blue room, Chen signaled discreetly to Captain Rivera, who had been observing from a distance. The brief hand gesture communicated the need for his presence, standard procedure, when officers suspected a child might be in danger from a family member. Mitchell looked up as the door opened, noting Emma's immediate physical reaction to Victoria's entrance. The child's entire body tensed, her breathing becoming shallow and rapid, the instinctive response of prey in the presence of a predator. Emma, baby, I've been so worried, Victoria exclaimed, moving forward with arms outstretched. The transformation in Emma was immediate and disturbing. Her body went completely rigid, her gaze dropping to the floor, hands clutching each other tightly in her lap. Not the reaction of a child relieved to see a parent after a frightening separation. More telling was Luna's response. The dog moved directly into Victoria's path, a low growl rumbling in her chest, a warning Mitchell had rarely heard from his normally disciplined partner. Officer Mitchell, control your dog this instant, Victoria demanded, stopping short. Ari, Luna back. Mitchell commanded, though his partner complied, only partially moving just enough to allow Victoria visual access to Emma, while still maintaining a protective position. Oh, sweetie, I was so worried, Victoria cooed, though she didn't attempt to move past Luna again. What were you thinking wandering off like that? You know better? Emma remained motionless, not looking up, not reaching for her stepmother. Behavior starkly different from what Mitchell would expect from a child reunited with a loving parent after hours of separation. Ms. Blackwood, Chen said gently, we need to complete some paperwork before releasing Emma into your custody. Standard procedure. Would you mind following me to fill out some forms? Victoria hesitated, then agreed with obvious reluctance. Of course, Emma, stay right there. We'll go home soon. As Victoria followed Chen to the desk outside, Mitchell watched Emma's shoulders drop slightly. Once her stepmother was out of sight, Luna immediately returned to the girl's side, pressing against her legs in what could only be described as a comforting gesture. Through the glass partition, Mitchell could see the stepmother's pleasant facade occasionally slipping when she thought no one was watching, irritation flashing across her features as she checked her watch repeatedly. Emma needs a medical examination, Chen said casually as Victoria filled out a form. We notice she seems uncomfortable using her right arm. Victoria's pen paused momentarily before continuing. She fell off the playground equipment last week. Just a bruise? Nothing serious. And may I ask about her clothing? It seems quite warm for July. She gets cold easily, Victoria replied smoothly. Poor circulation, it runs in her biological mother's family. And the gloves, it did them on. A flash of annoyance crossed Victoria's face before she composed herself. Eczema. The gloves protect her skin. Look, are these questions really necessary? We've had a very stressful day and I'd like to get Emma home where she belongs. When Victoria excused herself to use the restroom, Chen quickly joined Mitchell in the blue room, where Captain Rivera had also gathered to assess the situation. Something's not adding up, Chen explained quietly. Her story has inconsistencies. Her behavior doesn't match a genuinely concerned parent, and Emma's reactions are textbook indicators of abuse. Rivera nodded grimly. He'd been with the Bureau for 27 years, the last 8 as captain of the precinct. His salt and pepper hair and lined face spoke of the toll those years had taken, but his eyes remained sharp and observant. "What's your recommendation, Detective?" "Okay. We need to document any injuries before deciding our next steps," Chen replied. She knelt before Emma. "Sweetheart, we want to help you. If something is wrong, if someone is hurting you, we can keep you safe. Would it be okay if I look at your arms, just to show Captain Rivera?" After a long moment, Emma gave the slightest of nods. Chen carefully rolled up one sleeve, then the other, revealing a pattern of bruises in various stages of healing. Some clearly finger marks, others larger contusions, and what appeared to be small circular burns that Mitchell immediately recognized as cigarette marks. "Oh, Emma." Chen whispered, her professional demeanor cracking slightly at the evidence of deliberate prolonged abuse. "Thank you for showing us." Rivera's expression darkened as he took in the evidence. As a father of 3 cases involving child abuse always hit him harder than others. "What are you doing?" Victoria's voice rang out from the doorway. Emma immediately yanked her sleeves down her entire body. Tensing, Luna placed herself between the girl and her stepmother, a low rumble building in her chest. "Ms. Blackwood Washington," Chen said, standing, "we have some concerns about Emma's well-being that we need to address." Victoria's expression hardened for a moment before melting into confused innocence. "What? Emma is perfectly well cared for. She's clumsy, always has been, falls constantly." The artificial concern in her voice didn't reach her eyes, which had turned cold and calculating. "These bruises aren't consistent with falls," Mitchell stated flatly. "The pattern and various healing stages suggest repeated deliberate injury. Are you accusing me of something, officer?" Victoria's voice took on a dangerous edge. "Because I can have my husband's attorney on the phone in 30 seconds, and he'll be very interested to hear about these baseless allegations." "We're not making accusations," Rivera interjected with the calm authority of his rank. "We're following standard protocol when we observe signs of potential abuse." "Potential abuse." Victoria's voice rose. "This is absurd. We're leaving Emma come here now." She took a step forward. Mitchell moved to block her path. "Ms. Blackwood, we're not finished with our Kishananason. Unless you're charging me with something or have a court order, you have no right to keep us here." Victoria interrupted her legal knowledge, surprising Mitchell. "I am Emma's legal guardian, and you have no grounds to separate us." The legal reality hung in the air. Without clear evidence beyond the bruises or a confession, they couldn't legally prevent Victoria from taking Emma home. Bruising alone, while concerning, wasn't necessarily sufficient for an emergency removal without additional evidence or testimony. "Perhaps we could compromise," Chen suggested, her voice professionally neutral, despite the tension radiating from her body. "We need to complete just one more form. Why don't you finish the paperwork at my desk, and we'll bring Emma out when you're done?" Victoria hesitated, then agreed with visible reluctance. 5 minutes, then we're leaving." As Victoria followed Chen back to the desk, Mitchell could see Emma's rigid posture ease slightly. Once her stepmother was out of sight, Luna immediately relaxed her defensive stance, turning to press her nose gently against the girl's hand. "It's okay," Mitchell said softly. "You're safe right now." Rivera moved closer to Mitchell. "We don't have enough for an emergency removal yet," he murmured. Without Emma's verbal testimony or disclosure, Victoria could challenge it and potentially win. "I know," Mitchell replied, frustration evident in his voice. "But sending her back to that house..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "We'll open an investigation immediately," Rivera assured him. "Get Child Protective Services involved, interview the father when he returns. Check school records. If there's abuse happening, we'll build the case properly." Mitchell nodded, though the thought of Emma returning with Victoria even temporarily made his stomach twist with dread. He'd seen too many cases where the system had moved too slowly, the consequences devastating. Emma's eyes darted to the doorway, clearly tracking her stepmother's location through the glass partition. Mitchell noticed how she watched Victoria's every move like prey, monitoring a predator. Maya kept Victoria occupied with questions and forms, strategically positioning herself so the stepmother's back was to the blue room. In that moment of relative safety, something shifted in Emma's demeanor. She straightened slightly, eyes darting once more to ensure her stepmother wasn't watching. Then with trembling hands, she began to make a gesture. Her small fingers formed what appeared to be a specific sign, thumb tucked between middle and ring. Fingers palm facing inward, moved in a short, downward motion. The movement was hesitant, clearly unpracticed, yet deliberate. Mitchell tilted his head, not recognizing the gesture. "Are you trying to tell me something, Emma?" he asked gently. She repeated the motion more urgently this time, her eyes pleading for understanding. Mitchell watched closely but couldn't decipher the meaning. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "I don't understand. Can you show me again?" Before Emma could repeat the gesture, the room fell silent as Luna's demeanor transformed dramatically. The Belgian Malinois launched to her feet, unleashing a sharp, authoritative bark that echoed through the station. Nothing like her earlier warning growls, this was a trained alert, similar to the one she used when finding evidence or detecting danger. Every head in the station turned toward the sound. Confusion rippled across the bullpen as officers looked to identify the source of the disturbance. Luna barked again, standing directly in front of Emma. Her body language shifted from protection to alert signaling. Her training as a service dog included recognizing certain distress signals, and her behavior now indicated she had identified something significant. "Luna, what is it?" Mitchell asked, startled by his partner's sudden change. The dog looked between Emma's hands and Mitchell's face, repeatedly barking again, with unmistakable urgency. Through the glass partition, Mitchell saw Victoria rise from her chair, face contorted with alarm and anger. "What is that dog doing?" Her voice carried through the door. "Get it away from her." Chen moved to intercept Victoria, but the woman pushed past her, storming toward the blue room. "This is ridiculous. We're leaving right now." As Victoria burst through the door, Luna positioned herself squarely between the woman and Emma, her barking growing more intense, more insistent. "Control that animal immediately," Victoria demanded, reaching around Luna toward Emma. "Come on, we're going home where it's safe." Emma shrank back against the couch, terror evident in her eyes as Victoria reached for her. What happened next stunned everyone in the room. Luna, trained to never under any circumstances show aggression towards civilians, planted herself firmly in Victoria's path, and snarled teeth bared in unmistakable warning. The sound was primal, protective, a clear declaration that Victoria would not be permitted to approach the child. Officer Mitchell and Victoria shrieked, "Call off your dog this instant or I'll have your badge." Mitchell started to issue the command out of professional reflex, but stopped recognition dawning as he watched Luna's behavior. In their years of partnership, he'd learned to read his canine partner as clearly as any human colleague. Luna wasn't being aggressive without cause. She was communicating something specific about Emma's hand gesture. "Detective Chen," he called urgently, "do you recognize the sign Emma was making?" Chen moved closer, observing as Emma, emboldened by Luna's protection, repeated the gesture with trembling fingers. Recognition flashed across Chen's face, followed by a wave of understanding. "That's the sign for help," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "It's American Sign Language for help." The room fell silent, except for Luna's continued low growl. Emma's eyes filled with tears, her first visible emotion since they'd found her in the park. Relief that someone finally understood. "That's absurd," Victoria snapped, her earlier maternal concern evaporating entirely. "Emma doesn't know sign language. She's making things up for attention, like she always does." "She's asking for help," Chen insisted, quietly moving to stand beside Mitchell. "And your canine partner recognized it." Mitchell glanced down at Luna, who maintained her protective stance before Emma. The realization clicked into place. Service dogs were often trained to recognize distress signals, including basic sign language commands for emergencies. Luna had recognized the universal distress signal, while the humans had missed it. Where did you learn that sign?" Emma Mitchell asked, gently ignoring Victoria's increasingly agitated presence. The girl's eyes darted fearfully to her stepmother, then back to Mitchell. She remained silent, but her fingers twisted anxiously in her lap. This is ridiculous, Victoria declared, her voice rising. I'm taking my stepdaughter home now. She's clearly overwhelmed and making things up. Captain Rivera appeared in the doorway, his veteran presence immediately commanding attention. Is there a problem here, officers? Sir, Mitchell explained quickly. We have reason to believe Emma may be in danger if released to her stepmother's custody. She's displaying signs of physical abuse and has requested help using sign language. Everyone lies, Victoria exclaimed, her carefully constructed facade crumbling entirely. She's a troubled child who makes up stories when she doesn't get her way. Chen knelt beside Emma. Sweetheart, would it be okay if I roll up your sleeves again just to show Captain Rivera? After a moment, Emma nodded, her eyes never leaving Luna, who remained positioned between her and Victoria. Chen carefully revealed the Bruce's fingerprint marks, larger contusions, and the small circular burns that Mitchell had noted earlier. The evidence, now fully visible, painted an unmistakable picture of deliberate systematic abuse. Those are from her falling, Victoria insisted, though her voice had lost its conviction. And playing roughly, children get bruised all the time. And these? Chen asked softly, carefully removing one of Emma's gloves to reveal similar marks across her hand and wrist. Children don't typically fall on their hands repeatedly in this pattern, and these circular marks are consistent with cigarette burns. Victoria's expression hardened, her pretense of concern abandoned entirely. You have no proof I caused any of that? No. Rivera agreed, his voice level but cold. Not yet, but we have more than enough to open an investigation and place Emma in emergency protective custody pending that investigation. You can't do that. I have rights. Victoria's voice rose to a shout. That's my stepdaughter. See, Ms. Blackwood, Rivera interrupted firmly. You have two options right now. You can either come with Officer Ellis to answer some questions voluntarily, or I can have you escorted to a holding cell while we obtain a warrant. Your choice. Choiri. As Officer Ellis led Victoria away, her parting words landed like poison darts. Emma, remember what happens to little girls who tell lies about their parents. Remember what I promised. The threat, thinly veiled, hung in the air as Victoria was escorted out. Only when she had disappeared from sight did Emma's rigid posture begin to crumble, her small shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Luna immediately returned to Emma's side, pressing against her legs in a gesture of comfort that required no translation. Mitchell watched in awe as his highly trained partner, usually so disciplined and protocol-focused, seemed to understand exactly what this child needed in the moment he'd witnessed Luna's exceptional abilities countless times during their partnership. But this level of intuitive understanding went beyond anything he'd seen before. You're safe now, Chen assured her, carefully, not touching Emma without permission. She can't hurt you anymore. We won't let her. Captain Rivera stepped closer, his imposing presence softened by genuine concern. I'm calling in our specialized victim advocate for children. In the meantime, would you like something more comfortable to wear? It must be very warm in those clothes. With Victoria secured elsewhere, Chen brought a child-sized t-shirt and soft sweatpants kept for young victims, draping them gently over the arm of the couch. These might feel better than that sweater. It's pretty warm in here. After a moment's hesitation, Emma nodded, allowing Chen to help her remove the heavy turtleneck. Beneath it, she wore a thin t-shirt that revealed the full extent of the abuse, bruises, and various stages of healing mapped across her small arms and collarbone, telling a story of ongoing violence that stole the breath from everyone in the room. Emma, Chen said gently, can you tell us if Victoria did this to you? For a long moment, the girl remained silent, her gaze fixed on her lap where one hand absently stroked Luna's fur. Then, in a voice so soft it was barely audible, she whispered, yes. The single word, the first they'd heard from her, hung in the air like a thunderclap. Mitchell felt something in his chest tighten at the sound of that small, hesitant voice, finally breaking through the silence. Thank you for telling us, Chen said, careful to keep her voice steady, despite the emotion Mitchell could see building behind her eyes. That was very brave. Emma looked up, her eyes meeting Chen's directly for the first time. She said, no one would believe me. She continued each word seemingly requiring enormous effort. That I was a liar, that Dad would be angry if I told. Your dad doesn't know about what Victoria does, Mitchell asked gently. Emma shook her head. He's gone a lot. When he's home, she's different. Different how? Chen prompted softly. Nice. Emma whispered the word laden with the complex understanding that her stepmother's kindness was a performance rather than a reality. She doesn't get mad when he's there. She makes pancakes and laughs. But when he goes away, her voice trailed off, the implication clear. How did you learn the sign for help? Mitchell asked, recalling the gesture that Luna had recognized. A ghost of a smile touched Emma's lips. TV show about a police dog that saved a girl. The girl used hand signals when she couldn't talk. I practiced it sometimes just in case. Service dogs are trained to respond to certain emergency signals. Mitchell explained, watching as Emma's hand returned to Luna's fur, stroking the dog with more confidence. Now, Luna knew exactly what you were trying to tell us, even when we didn't understand. She knew I was scared at the park. Emma continued, her voice growing slightly stronger with each word. She stayed with me in the car. She's pretty smart. The smartest, Mitchell agreed, warmth filling his chest as he watched his partner lean into the child's touch. And she doesn't make mistakes about people. She gets really mad. Emma explained, the words coming more freely now that Victoria was gone. If I make noise or drop things or dinner isn't right. So I learned to be quiet all the time, even when it hurts. The simple statement lands through Mitchell like physical pain. He exchanged glances with Chen, seeing his own emotion reflected in her eyes. Captain Rivera returned with Andrea Collins, the department's child victim advocate. A woman in her 50s with a calming presence and decades of experience helping traumatized children navigate the system. Emma, this is Andrea. Rivera introduced them. She helps kids like you when they're at the police station. Child Protective Services is on their way, and Dr. Reyes is already waiting to check your injuries. Emma's fingers tightened in Luna's fur. Will she stay with me? She asked, gesturing to the dog. Rivera looked to Mitchell, who nodded without hesitation. Of course, Luna is officially assigned to your case now. Relief visibly washed over Emma's features. Then concern clouded her eyes. What about after? Where will I go? The eternal challenge of the system foster care was overwhelmed, emergency placements limited, and the process of investigating her father for potential complicity would take time. Andrea sat across from Emma, her voice gentle but honest. We'll find a safe place for you to stay while we sort everything out. There are families who specifically open their homes to children in situations like yours. Could, Emma hesitated, then found her courage. Could Luna visit sometimes? Mitchell knelt to Emma's eye level. Absolutely. In fact, part of Luna's job is checking on people we've helped. I'm sure she'd be very disappointed if she couldn't visit you. As if understanding the conversation, Luna raised her head to lick Emma's hand, once tail thumping gently against the couch in affirmation. The next hours passed in a carefully choreographed sequence of procedures designed to protect Emma while building a case against Victoria. Dr. Elena Reyes, a pediatrician specializing in child abuse cases, documented each injury with gentle efficiency. Child Protective Services placed Emma in an emergency foster home with an experienced family who had cared for traumatized children before. Victoria remained in custody, initially belligerent and threatening lawsuits, then coldly calculating as the evidence mounted against her. Richard Blackwood was contacted in Tokyo, his initial disbelief giving way to horror as photographs and medical reports were shared. He was catching the next flight home, his business trip abandoned. Throughout it all, Luna remained by Emma's side, only separating when absolutely necessary for medical examinations, and even then staying within the child's sight. The connection between them was remarkable to witness, the dog's unwavering attention and the girl's growing comfort in her presence. As Emma prepared to leave with her CPS caseworker, she looked up at Mitchell. How did she know? She asked simply. Know what? Mitchell responded. That I needed help, that Victoria was bad. How did Luna know when nobody else did? Why are you wondering? Mitchell considered the question carefully. Luna sees things differently than humans do. He explained she doesn't get fooled by words or appearances. She pays attention to how people really feel to their hearts, not their stories. Emma nodded, accepting this explanation with the straightforward wisdom of childhood. She's a good dog. The best, Mitchell agreed. And you know what? You can call us anytime you need to talk to her. I think she'd like that. Andrea had arranged for Emma to have a small prepaid phone with emergency contacts programmed in standard protocol for children in protective custody who might need to reach authorities quickly. Really? Emma asked, the first genuine smile Mitchell had seen lighting her face. Even just to say hi. Especially just to say hi? Mitchell confirmed. Luna loves phone calls, don't you, girl? The Malinois perked up at her name-tail wagging in apparent agreement. As Emma was led toward the waiting car, she turned back one last time. Officer Mitchell. Yes, Emma. Thank you for listening to Luna when she tried to tell you something. Most grown-ups don't listen to dogs. The simple observation carried a weight beyond the child's understanding, a profound truth about how often humans miss what's right in front of them because it comes in an unexpected form. I'm learning to be a better listener. Mitchell replied honestly, Luna's a pretty good teacher. 3 weeks later, Mitchell's phone rang while he was completing paperwork at his desk. Luna, resting at his feet, raised her head at the familiar sound. Officer Mitchell, he answered. Came a small, hesitant voice. It's Emma, is Luna there? Sure. Mitchell smiled, putting the phone on speaker. She is. She just heard your voice and her ears perked right up. Hi, Luna. Emma said, her voice stronger than when they'd last spoken. I wanted to tell you that I'm doing okay. My new foster family has a fenced yard where I can play, and nobody yells when I make noise. Mitchell felt his throat tighten unexpectedly. She's very happy to hear that Emma. And guess what? Victoria has to stay in jail until her trial. That's what Miss Andrea told me, and my dad visits every day. He cries sometimes and says he's sorry. He didn't know. That's good, Emma. Really good. Is Luna catching bad guys today? Emma asked the innocent question, bringing a smile to Mitchell's face. Not yet, but the day's still young. Right now, she's helping me with very important police paperwork by sleeping on my feet. Tui. Emma's laugh, bright and uninhibited, carried through the speaker. The sound of it, so different from the terrified silence of their first meeting, affected Mitchell more than he had expected. Miss Andrea says I might be able to visit the station next week. Would that be okay? That would be great. Mitchell confirmed. Luna would love to see you, and so would I and Detective Chen. I have to go now. Foster mom's taking me shopping for new shoes. Mine are too small. Have fun, Emma. Call anytime, okay? I will buy Luna, by Officer Mitchell. As the call ended, Mitchell looked down at his partner, who had listened to the entire conversation with apparent interest. You did good, Luna, he said softly, reaching down to scratch behind her ears. Real good. Luna rested her muzzle on his knee, her amber eyes meeting his with the solemn intelligence that had first drawn him to her during their initial training sessions. In that moment, Mitchell was struck by how often humans underestimated the capacity of other creatures to understand what truly matters, to see beyond facades and pretense to the heart of things. A notification popped up on his computer screen. The department's monthly recognition ceremony was scheduled for the following week. Without hesitation, Mitchell opened the nomination form and began typing Luna's name beneath reason for commendation. He wrote simply, for seeing what humans missed and insisting we pay attention. Victoria Blackwood's case would take months to work through the legal system. Emma faced a long journey of healing and rebuilding trust. The system, with all its flaws and limitations, would continue to navigate the complex balance between family preservation and child safety. But today, in this moment, one small victory had been won not through sophisticated technology or complex legal maneuvering, but through the ancient bond between humans and the animals who have stood beside us throughout history, sometimes seeing more clearly than we do ourselves. Mitchell saved the commendation form and stood reaching for Luna's lead. Come on, partner. Let's hit the park before our next call. I think we both earned a break. Luna rose immediately, tail wagging at the prospect of open spaces and fresh air. As they walked through the station, several officers called out greetings, a few making direct references to the hero of the Blackwood case? Luna accepted the attention with dignified grace, staying focused on her handler as they pushed through the doors into the bright afternoon sunshine. The world outside continued its chaotic dance traffic signals, changing pedestrians hurrying past clouds building in the western sky, promising afternoon showers. Within this ordinary urban landscape, something extraordinary had occurred. A silent child had found her voice, a dedicated officer had learned to trust instincts beyond human understanding, and a service dog had demonstrated that sometimes the most profound communication requires no words at all. Have you ever noticed how animals seem to understand things that humans sometimes miss? The bond between a child and an animal can be extraordinary, creating a silent understanding that transcends language. What would you have done if you were in Mitchell's position? Would you have trusted Luna's instincts even when there wasn't clear evidence of danger? And how many children, like Emma, might be out there right now, using whatever silent signals they can in hopes that anyone will understand their plea for help? Sometimes the smallest gesture can speak volumes if only we're paying attention. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary canine stories. Don't forget to press that notification bell so you never miss our daily uploads. Share this video with anyone who appreciates the incredible bond between humans and their four-legged partners in law enforcement.